Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars is one of, if not the most underrated game in the entire franchise. It is one of the highest rated games ever released for the Nintendo DS, making great use of the console's power by porting 2/3 of GTA 4's map, with the exception of Alderney, downscaled for a console with much less power than the PS3 and Xbox 360. It is also a very unique Grand Theft Auto game in many ways, such as the infamous drug dealing minigame, which fans have been asking Rockstar to bring back for a future GTA release for well over a decade at this point. Various quick-time events for stealing cars, breaking out of a submerged vehicle, and my personal favorite, scratching tickets. Nothing better than good old-fashioned gambling without any of the real-life consequences. But I'm not here to make yet another retrospective video on this game, mainly because I already have one on the channel, linked down below. Today I'm going to highlight a laundry list of random facts about the game, the city of Liberty City and its population that contains a lot of interesting inhabitants, and a few hidden lore details that only someone with a PhD in unemployment could find out on their own. Chinatown Wars was developed by Rockstar Leeds, who are best known for making the amazing and beloved handheld GTA games, Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories. And according to a Nintendo World Report, GTA Chinatown Wars contains over 900,000 lines of hand-optimized code, making it one of the most complex Nintendo games to be made. And in comparison to GTA 3's and Liberty City Stories' 3D era version of the city, Chinatown's rendition of LC is nearly double in size. And again, like I said, this is not only one of the most underrated GTA games ever made, but also one of the most technically impressive ones in the entire franchise. In the words of the former studio director at Rockstar Leeds, Gordon Hall, who has sadly passed away back in 2021, with GTA Chinatown Wars, we wanted to bring something very new to the GTA series, whilst being proudly aware of its lineage. The early top-down games were all about delivering concentrated arcade action, and the new perspective given to the series after GTA 3 clearly gave a little three-dimensionality to the games, complemented by increased narrative and gameplay depth. GTA Chinatown Wars takes aspects of all the previous iterations of the series and blends it with the fresh, exciting gameplay possibilities that the DS platform offers. In fact, most of the early development was spent making bigger and bigger explosions, throwing cars and pads around, and generally seeing how far we could push the action. Unquestionably, this paid off, as CTW is wildly kinetic. And indeed, this game is a great blend of the old with the new, as Chinatown Wars implemented things like the weapon wheel, making use of the PDA, which is the equivalent of a mobile phone since this game doesn't feature voice acting, which is used as a way for storyline characters to inform you about where to meet for missions, but also to receive tip-offs about various dealers and their drug inventory, discounts on weapons and ammunition, and even ordering them to your safe house. All of that getting mixed in with the chaotic nature of the 2D era GTAs. Moving on, the storyline of this game is mainly centered around one singular item, the Yu-Jian sword. The sword has been the keeping for the head of the Li family, a tradition Huang Li's father made up after winning it in a card game. After the murder of Huang's father, the sword is brought from Hong Kong to Liberty City to the family's new patriarch, Wu Kenny Li, who is Huang's uncle. Kenny initially wanted to give the sword to the head of the local triads, Xin Jiaoming, in order to become his successor. However, he instead ordered the Wansu Nodong to steal the sword and kill Huang. Over the course of the game, Huang works for various people in the hopes of finding Yu Jian, and even makes a few friends along the way. At the end of the story, he finds out that Kenny had killed his father and stolen the sword. After a brief encounter with him, Kenny escapes from Huang and Wade Heaston and arrives at Sin's penthouse, where he stabs him with a sword and injuring him. As Huang and Heaston also arrive, Kenny attacks them with the sword, but Huang kills him and finally reclaims Yu Jian. It is also in this final cutscene where we find out that Sin offers the leadership role for the Liberty City Triads to Huang. As of today, we still don't know if Huang accepted or denied that offer. However, I do have a speculative video on this channel about this specific topic, and if you're interested, we can also check that one down below. Now, let's talk about our boy Huang Li, the protagonist of this game. Prior to even making his first physical appearance in the franchise, Huang, along with a few other characters we meet throughout the story, like his uncle Kenny and Sin, are mentioned in GTA 4, with their official criminal records being listed in the LCPD database record. In fact, Huang already has 2 charges listed prior to his arrival in 2009, one for trademark counterfeiting in 2002 and another one for Grand Theft Auto in 2005. And he himself mentions that during one of his few visits to Liberty City prior to the game's events, he caught crabs from an encounter with a Swiss tourist. As for his background, Huang was born in Hong Kong, China in 1983. He owes his status as a triad member to his father, a triad boss from China, although Huang wasn't really interested in this type of lifestyle prior to his arrival in America. Instead, he was more focused on spending his father's money and getting into other types of trouble, never having to work a single day in his entire life, thanks to his family's fortune and reputation. Due to his lifestyle, Huang developed the reputation of being a spoiled rich kid. As a result, he never made any real friends, at one point claiming he bought all of his friends just like everything else, since it was easier than forming real connections with people. Huang was mentored to some extent in the triad ways by his father, becoming a competent gangster. While Huang's exact relationship with his father is never detailed, it does appear that he has a positive opinion of him, describing him as a good guy for a philandering, drug-addicted murderer. However, it is implied that Huang was somewhat neglected by his father, who indulged in many of the same vices as him. As for his creepy Uncle Kenny, he was born sometime around 1960 in China, and according to the LCPD database, Kenny was arrested in 1996 for possession of stolen property, in 1998 for larceny, in 2001 for grand larceny, in 2002 for arson, and in 2006 for extortion. In his file, the police also say he is suspected for being the second most powerful triad boss in Liberty City. Wu Li in Cantonese means fox, but it can also mean strengthless or unreasonable in Mandarin, which does kind of fit his character. Of course, we can't forget about the old man Sin. He is the elderly head for the Jiaoming family and the leader of the triads in Liberty City since the early 1980s. He's the father of Chan Jiaoming, who is the triad underboss. He is believed to be responsible for several murders and has been arrested on 3 occasions, in 2002 for extortion, then in 2004 for assault, and again in 2005 for racketeering. His son Chen also had a few run-ins with the LCPD and has been arrested on 3 occasions, once in 1999 for possession of heroin, again in 2003 for extortion, and a third time in 2005 for possession of stolen property. Finally, I also want to briefly talk about my favorite character from this game, Wade Heaston, a 45-year-old undercover detective that works for the LCPD. Throughout the course of the story, he ends up befriending the protagonist and ultimately helps Huang on his quest for revenge, whilst also being the one to claim the spoils of victory as he ends up arresting Sin during the final mission. Heaston is heavily monitored by the IAD, which is the Internal Affairs Division, for substance abuse and corruption allegations. He claims that he needs one good boss to protect himself from the IAD, which he eventually manages to get. Though his actions are quote-unquote legally sensitive, he has good intentions and is arguably loyal to the protagonist, as he does end up helping Huang in finding his father's killer. Easton often makes up fake scenarios about his life, claiming they are more interesting than what really happened, like his wife getting killed instead of just divorcing him, where in reality he was cheated on with his best friend. He often goes on about how a movie about his life should be made. His fate after the main storyline is also unknown, though it is possible that he may have simply retired. I do hope we hear something about him in GTA 6, but wherever he is, I hope he's enjoying his time off duty. He's a pretty chill dude. Some of the things that changed throughout the game world and lore-wise by 2009 include the attractions at the Firefly Island Funland amusement park being renovated, Kenny Petrovich's used auto parts and salvage garage, which was destroyed by Niko Bellic a year prior, is still in a deteriorated state due to the passage of time. Roman's and Nico's former apartment in Hove Beach has been repaired and turned into a row of shops. Roman's taxi depot, the express car service, has been finally repaired. The construction on Columbus Avenue is completed. The monoglobe is unfortunately destroyed during the game's events, along with a few other random buildings. The Spanish lords have lost their territory in Cerveza Heights to Uncle Kenny's Triad Gang. However, they expanded their East Holland territory to the nearby Lancaster area. The Petrovich Mafia is in full control of Hove Beach in Broker. The Irish-American killers now control the former McCreary crime territories in East Island City and Steinway after their painful collapse during the events of GTA 4. The Italian mob expanded their territory from Little Italy to the nearby Suffolk, City Hall, and the Triangle areas. The Angels of Death moved out from the Yardies territory in Beechwood City to Willis, setting their hideout at the community cinema. They left their territory in Boabo, leaving the neighborhood free of any gang control. And finally, the Yardies now have full control of Beechwood City and Shotler, but have lost presence in Willis due to the Angels of Death moving. On a technical side, certain areas of Liberty City have been adapted to be visible by the player from the 3D isometric top-down perspective. Overhead trains have been slightly moved away from the roads, most noticeably in the train tracks in front of some young guy. And yes, that is the name of Kenny's restaurant. Bridges and overpasses have been moved to ground level, and road tunnels are merged with ground level roads. Buildings located under bridges and overpasses are slightly moved to be visible, like the Liberty Sanitation Depot. The layouts of streets, while roughly following those from GTA 4 and the episodes, were altered to be more grid-based, and as a result, streets were either repositioned to be straight or diagonal, merged with other roads, or just outright removed. To make way for this change, the developers also had to alter the shape of some boroughs, like Bohan for instance. Most skyscrapers only have their base rendered, as the top cannot be viewed with a top-down perspective, and finally, all roads that lead to Alderney are obviously closed off. Some of you may wonder why Alderney doesn't exist in this game, and aside from the fact that the game is already incredibly jam-packed considering the capabilities of the Nintendo DS, lore-wise, Alderney is not available due to the lack of importance to the Triad organization's storyline. And with that, I think we can wrap up this Yapathon for today. And since this video is about Chinatown Wars, I feel the need and am basically morally obligated to mention that if you've never played this game before, you should definitely give it a shot. It was also released for both Android and iOS around this time 16 years ago, and the mobile version is a pretty solid way of playing this game. But what do you think? Did I miss any important lore details about the game, the City of Liberty, or one of its many residents? Let me know in the comment section down below. And while you're there, also leave a like. And of course, consider subscribing if you want to see more. Thank you so much for watching.